Hi everyone, I've got a real special video today. Something that hopefully you'll end up walking away from this, reassessing your values, or if you're already like me, will help you keep you on the right path. Today, I want to make you question your morals. I want you to go from feeling hopeless to feeling like you can become the man or woman who truly walks the correct path. All over the world, we've seen the rise in hookups. The Healthy Journal reported that 60 to 80% of North American college students have in some way participated in a hookup. That is an insanely high number, but why is this wrong? Well, there's so many places. We could talk about the mental health impact and the personal destruction it leaves in its path. We could talk about the moral decay it leads to, forming us all into big sacks of nothing but dream-killed basic primal instincts, devoid of what makes us unique. We could go on and on about the terrible and empty standards it places on both men and women and how it objectifies everyone it touches. Or maybe about the slippery slope into overconsumption of drugs and alcohol, which not only contribute to addiction, which is rapidly becoming more and more of an epidemic in the Western world, but also contribute to rap culture that's slowly leaking out of the hookup scene and into normal life. We could also talk about how our emotions are thrown under the bus for meaningless sex, which hits on everything already mentioned before, and I haven't even began to mention the horrifying physical ramifications it can lead to. How about we talk about all of that? It's about damn time that more people talk about this issue. Before we get into that, let me ask you a question. I want you to keep something in your head as we go through this video. Is instant gratification worth it? Is the price you pay for these connections worth it? Are you really getting what you need from this? Not what you want, but what you need. Let's first talk about hookup culture's effect on your mental health. It's no secret that depression is on the rise in the West. However, are you aware of how hookup culture can increase symptoms of depression? Psychology Today notes that people who were not depressed before participating in casual sex began showing symptoms of depression after participation. Why is that? People get into hookup culture typically in one of three ways: peer pressure, experimentation, and ultimately something that contributes to both: culture. Obviously, this is a very broad and blanket statement, and there are many other ways people get sucked in. But these are the three that I want to hone in on today. We live in a world today where too many people, men in this situation, feel that you can show masculinity in a body count. How many bitches you can fuck, if you will. Because somehow lots of meaningless sex equates to how good you are at being a man. Which is something we'll address when we get to the moral side. But this standard that's been created has a nasty tendency to rub off on others. People are very impressionable and look to find strength in ways that they aren't aware of the effects of. In today's world, so many people are lost, and there's too many factors to count for the reasons. Whether it's because 39% of school-aged children grow up without a father, or people aren't taught to treat a love interest with respect. Maybe due to the overconsumption of media that portrays it as something as normal. Who knows, but peer pressure, it's like a virus. Someone gets into it and then they brag about it. I'm sure the "no bitches" line is a funny thing we've all heard several times before, but where does this stem from, besides the stupid Megamind template? Why do we need bitches to look better to someone else? When someone who deals with a lot of confusion in life gets mixed in with people like this, they latch onto them and see them as a role model, whether they're aware they've made this person into a role model in their head or not. They'll try and imitate, they'll search for meaning in something someone else has done to try and find fulfillment, unaware that what they're chasing is leading to their role model's lack of fulfillment in themselves. Because as good as having girls lined up ready for a night with you sounds, it all disappears in the end for the most part. There are relationships that start out as flings, but most flings in hookup culture stay flings, leaving you once again alone with nothing else to do besides find another fling and brag to your boys about the crazy night that you've had, which is now forever in the past. Now, experimentation, a gateway into hookup culture that may be all too familiar, whether it's happened to you or someone you know, is leaving a serious relationship and going out to look for fun right after. People want to see what they've been missing out on during their now dead relationship. Lots of men or women all available for them now. Maybe they try and find a rebound right after, or maybe they just go straight for the sex. But in today's world we live in, sex is more probable than an actually fulfilling rebound. And really, rebounds aren't that much better. Both casual sex and rebounds don't allow your brain to slow down and process the feelings that come with breakups. Whether you're the one that cut it off or you're the one that got dumped, your head needs time to heal. Whether it's a short relationship, something that's lasted for years, or anything in between. You need to process why this happened, what you do next for yourself, and how you get back to life by yourself. There's a reason that rebounds are almost always seen as a terrible thing, because they don't give you the time you need to self-reflect. Little intermission before I expose myself here. Full disclosure here, peer pressure and experimentation is what almost pulled me in. I just got dumped out of a 4-year relationship a few months back, and on my path back to single life, I saw some of my single friends hooking up all the time, and they seemed to be really happy. So I got curious, got on Tinder, found some matches, talked for a little bit, but something in me felt off, like there was something I wasn't seeing. Then I pieced together that my friends that were always hooking up all the time were almost always high, and then it clicked with me that do I really want to live a numb life in an altered state of consciousness, searching for fling after fling? Or do I want to take a path of more resistance and truly recover? And now that I've decided that going to the gym every day and trying to build an audience schizo posting on the internet sounds a lot better to me, that's what I want to do. But to finish off this part, let's talk about culture. Music, movies, TV, all of this is contributing to hookup culture. I mean, the fact that Ice Spice right now is one of the biggest artists should say enough as it is. But we can dive a little deeper than that. This problem with hookup culture being portrayed as good in the media has been going on for a long time. First example that comes to my mind is someone like Joey Tribbiani from Friends, Mr. How You Doing? The guy that's always hooking up the most is almost always seen as the goofy, always happy comic relief character. He's got some sad moments, but never enough to accurately portray how hookup culture hurts people. There's also Glenn Quagmire from Family Guy.
He's Quagmire, Quagmire. You never really know what's gonna do next. He's Quagmire, Quagmire. Giggity, 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 let's have sex.
Family Guy eroding society is the best possible way to go out. I'm sure we can all think of different big hookup characters from all sorts of different shows and movies, but I think you get my point. What was I talking about before this? So after people get into hookup culture, how does it start to make them depressed? For most people, we're raised that you should grow up and find a partner you want to marry, or at least someone you can connect to on an emotional level. It's something so ingrained in us that going from searching for the one to someone you'll see for one night and then never again is like temperature shock for your brain. And that shock is something that can lead to all sorts of problems, like an inability to connect with a future partner you actually have a real connection with, to other problems like performance issues, which has its own separate form of anxiety around it. Both of these often lead to feelings of regret, confusion, self-loathing, guilt, list goes on and on. But with all of these factors, it's no wonder why hookup culture can lead to such mental health issues. Even if you think you're the biggest alpha male or something stupid like that, if you're one of those people, there's a reason you clicked on this video. You're confused, part of you hurts, and you're looking for answers. The answer's right in front of you. It's just up to you to take what everyone else deems to be the harder path. Once you do that, you'll start to heal. Now for my favorite part of this video, the moral decay. Question for all the dudes out here, are you having a hard time finding a girl that seems like she wants to stay with you? Like you just can't find love because everywhere you go on social media, you're getting loaded with TikTok girls acting like absolute degens for a little bit of online clout? For the girls, feel like it's hard to find a real guy that isn't just saying what you need to hear to get you in bed? Well, for either of you, you're not alone. The emotional divide between men and women is growing bigger and bigger because we don't trust one another. More men are feeling like they can't trust women to be faithful, and more women are feeling like they can't trust men because they have to worry whether or not they're going to be played or taken advantage of by a man. When in reality, those of us who aren't involved in that culture really don't have anything to worry about. But we'll never know because everything we see all around us are things we find disgusting, like women having astronomically high body counts and men jumping from girl to girl, crushing emotions in the process. The lack of trust destroys us and the world around us. We'll address how moral decay affects those in the culture in a sec, but those of us trying to stay away from it are still victimized by it because we don't know who could be trying to get with us for one night and who truly wants to find out if we could live together for the rest of our lives. People are manipulative, and when everyone of the preferred sex seems like someone who could hurt us, it leads to self-induced isolation, because being alone seems less painful than having an encounter with someone wanting to use us. Those types of things can traumatize people, and the trauma can lead to substance abuse, hostility towards others, negative views of the other sex. The list goes on and on. But where moral decay is most visible is with people into hookup culture. Sexual freedom is something that we've seen totally backfire in the Western world. Since the sexual revolution began, divorce has been on the rise and marriage has been on a decline. And while I hear the argument brewing from someone that there's nothing wrong with people having sex before marriage, what's gonna be your defense when some accident happens and that leaves you with a kid? As stated earlier, 39% of school-aged children grow up without a father. Like, holy shit, that's unfathomable. Seriously, the fact that that's just become a part of daily life is absolutely insane. Children need both of their parents. It's great that single mothers have been able to still raise children, but the fact is that children that grow up with both parents grow up to be more stable individuals in almost all facets of life. What do we think is going to happen when almost 40% of the population grows up fatherless? I mean, obviously Twitter exists, so we've got a pretty good example of what it's going to look like, and it's not good. But before hookup culture hurts future generations, it'll hurt us. I've mentioned earlier that it ruins people's mental health and perception of others, but let's dive into another part of that. Hookup culture is addictive, in the sense that once you go from one person, it's easy to go on to the next, reinforcing a cycle of meaningless sex. For as long as civilization has been a thing, sex has been sacred. You can try to fight that and say it's a biological instinct, but we as people have made it something more. We've made it sacred through religion, civilization, relationships, stuff like that. Stuff that we as people made. Hookup culture is breaking these pillars that have been kept for centuries, returning us to basic animalistic ways where men are supposed to run around procreating with as many women as possible, and women are supposed to birth and raise the child by herself. What this animalistic nature does to us is further isolate us. Men all viewing each other as rivals for sex and not getting together to further the species, and women being nothing more than someone to raise kids. That sounds dramatic, but isn't that what we see with, like, all other animals, not as complicated as humans? Is temporary sexual pleasure worth letting go of everything we've done as a species? And really, this has already started. I'm not just totally crazy here. People are growing more isolated. The general population is getting dumber. We prioritize pulling bitches more than we prioritize accomplishments, fulfillment, being satisfied with life. This is degrading our societal morals and will affect each and every one of us if it's not stopped. So, sex and drugs. Let's talk about that, and I promise this part will be a lot less schizo than the last part, since we're dealing with straight statistics here. But to start out, if you've used an app like Tinder, how often do you see people's profiles talking about finding someone to smoke with or going out for drinks? Stuff like that. Last time I checked, Tinder was supposed to be a dating app. Obviously, Tinder is awful for that, but let's dig into the drug culture across these dating apps. Young people have been using apps like Tinder as a means to access illicit drugs, whether it be from finding a dealer on the app, or just finding people to hang out with that have the drugs they want. Which is one of the gateways people in the culture get into drug use. Another is just casual drug use during casual sex. It starts off as something to enhance the experience, but the drugs are always going to do what drugs always do. You'll start small with only social or these false intimate scenarios, and you'll think it'll always stay that way. You'll think you're safe, but congratulations, you just joined the statistic of how people get hooked on drugs. You're not above the other addicts. They all have the same story. Eventually, it'll turn into doing them because you're stressed, until it transforms into a full dependency that all addicts suffer from. And I'm not just referring to harder drugs here, I'm talking about weed too. I'll go on record and say that weed is addictive despite what the mainstream narrative says. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, 30% of people who use weed recreationally suffer from marijuana use disorder. Symptoms of this disorder include irritability, mood and sleep difficulties, decreased appetite, cravings, restlessness, and/or various forms of physical discomfort. This disorder is induced when your brain gets used to large or consistent amounts of marijuana. Weed isn't addictive the same way something like nicotine is, but when you're using weed to stop your bad mood and irritability, you put yourself in a vicious cycle. Some would say this cycle sounds a lot like addiction. Eventually, I'll go more in depth about weed addiction in its own video, but for today, we're dealing with what this has to do with hookup culture. These two are connected because it's not an uncommon thing for a clean person to get into drugs just to get with someone they're trying to get in bed with. And these experiences can very easily lead to drug addiction with whatever substance is being used. Something much more dangerous is how this can all play into the rap culture that also infests hookup culture. I'm gonna be saying rap a lot in this part of the video. It's supposed to be a funny way to curb TOS, but I know it's just gonna get annoying. Just know I'm sorry and I'm trying my best here. I don't think I need to explain how consumption of drugs and alcohol can lead to rap taking place more frequently than in encounters where no such substances are involved. But the inner workings of hookup culture give rap all the nutrients it needs to thrive and grow into a much more bigger common issue. When illicit substances make fumbling the communication necessary for consent happen much more frequently, it's very easy to accidentally rap the person you're hooking up with. But what's even scarier are the large amounts of people that get into hookup culture because rap is so excused and common there. The accidents that happen there draw these worst types of people that feel they can use drugs or misunderstandings as a cover for rap is something you will never find more common in any other group of people. You know, outside of like a YouTube Kids comment section. Both of these factors make rap a scarily common thing in hookup culture. And finally, the last thing to talk about are the high rates of STIs and STDs that can have lifelong health effects on you. The CDC estimates that nowadays, kids between 15 to 24 make up half of the 20 million new STD cases per year in America, even though the same age group is barely 1/4 of the population actively having sex. Now, why is that? I wonder if it's something we've been talking about this whole video is contributing to this problem. Side note, if you think it's weird that 15 to 17-year-olds are a part of that population, welcome to the messed up world we live in. Now, I think we're all smart enough to identify the massive contribution to this problem. Over the last few years, the amount of positive cases as dangerous as HIV have been on the rise. It's very obvious how hookup culture is making this problem worse. The more people you hook up with, the more likely you are to end up sleeping with someone with some disease or infection. Obviously, you could solve this problem with protection, but in too many cases, that's just not happening. From lifelong STDs to temporary STIs, the infection rate is much higher in the hookup scene than it is for people that stick to one partner longer. It's a very simple math equation. You fuck around and you find out. In this case, though, it's literal, and you find out at a doctor's office that you have lifelong herpes. So I think I've made a solid point on why we should burn hookup culture to the ground. It's ruining so many parts of life. With all of this being said, I want to bring up the question I asked you all earlier in this video. Is the price you have to pay for these connections worth it? Are you really getting what you need from this? Can you now really say that getting involved in this malicious culture is worth what it takes from you? All of these things I thought to myself before I pulled out from the literally disease-infested waters over there, and I'm happy I did. I'm extremely happy I'm not going to have to learn the hard way about the tolls hookup culture takes on you. And for those of you in it right now, it's not too late to leave. You didn't sign a contract with the devil selling your soul to mindless sex. Get out. Do something with your time and energy that you can look back on and be happy with. Life's not about sex. There's a meaning to life. However, the meaning of life is a topic for another day. I think you've all taken enough of my schizoid posting for one day, but if you take anything away from this, take my question. Is the price you have to pay worth it? Are you really getting what you need from this? Because odds are you aren't. Because it's not fulfilling. If you're in this culture, there's a reason you clicked on this video. You know what you gotta do now. There's a soulmate out there for you that'll make you feel like the mindless sex is worthless, like it really is. No matter what mainstream media says, don't be like the rest of the crowd. Be better. But anyways guys, that's it for me. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. My goal with YouTube is to help you be the best person possible, and I am 100% sure I can do that with my videos. Because when enough of us become our best selves, we change the world. Alright guys, see ya.